President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the floor is given to the co-prosecutor to resume the questioning. You may now proceed.
Sir, these biographies, like the one that hopefully you still have with you that I just showed you, how many times when you were at Bore Kela did you have to complete a biography?
I made only one time biography. I told Mr. President that I made only once that biography.
Okay, a couple small questions. On the top right of the form, it says, in the area that I'm pointing at now, your form, I think you can read it, it's too far away. Correct. Unit S71. Can you explain what that was?
I was asked to write what they told me. I knew that I was told to write K5 and ask K11. That code was told to me to write. I was told to write as they told me.
And then we see just to the left of the fingerprint the year, and it says, correct me if I'm wrong, 1976. So did you complete this biography in 1976? This is again on the front page of the document you have, right to the left of the fingerprint.
After I disrobed, I came to Phnom Penh. So it was 1 year after that I came to Phnom Penh. That was in 1976 when I was also asked to make the biography. It was in 1976, that is the early year 1976, that I was told to make biography.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit confused. I know this happened a long time ago with what you were doing between April 75 and 1976 when you made the biography. So one question I want to ask you. Do you know what S200 school was?
I do not know. I heard of that name, but I do not know the location of the so-called S200 school. I heard of S71, and I was told to write as I had been told.
Mr. Witness, do you recall speaking to someone from an organization called the Documentation Center of Cambodia way back in the year 2005, a man by the name of, I believe it's a man, Han Sochia. Do you recall Han Sochia from the Documentation Center coming out to your village and speaking to you about the Democratic Kampuchea and your experiences there?
I do not recall who had been to interview me particularly in relation to a person named Pan Sokchia. I do not know him.
And do you recall when you came to the court for your interview that, not this building, but to the premises here, the other building, that you read over this interview that you had done in 2005 at the beginning before speaking to the investigators?
I never read it. I never read it in 2005.
Okay, well, let me see if I can refresh your recollection. This is from the transcript that we have. The document is E3/9086. So I'm going to read an answer you gave, and it's at page in Khmer 00977-447, and in English it's at the bottom of 00983-502. At that time, he told the DC Cam, I think it was around 1 month after I was disrobed. When I decided to go to Phnom Penh, I was told to walk from here to Ampil Pagoda to attend education sessions. Different groups were created at Ampil Pagoda. We attended political education sessions for around 3 days. And then we walked to Wat Preah Prainen Pagoda. And then in parentheses it says Wat Preah Tonle Pagoda in Svai Rang town, where we also attended education sessions again. After completing education sessions at Preah Prainen, Wat Preah Tonle Pagoda, we walked to Svai Rormiet Pagoda in Panea. We experienced a lot of suffering. Upon arrival, we went to the S200 school. It was called S200 school then. We studied there for around half a month. It was during the Pol Pot era. So after listening to that, to what you said in 2005, does that refresh your recollection about this S200 school?
I did not give my detailed statement before I was deprived. I was sent to work in a cooperative Phnom Penh. Then I was sent to a factory. I was also walked to Ampil Pagoda. After I left Wat Ampil, I was told to spend 2 nights at a location, but that was not a training session for me. It was a long journey, that's why we had to sleep on road. We later on arrived at Svai Rieng, and I cannot recall the village name. A village name in Prey Vang, where I did not receive any big training session. Yes, that is correct, Mr. President. As Mr. Co-Prosecutor mentioned, I failed to inform you about that. We had a long journey traveling, and we had to sleep en route. There were meetings on the way, and we were told not to move freely. I also reached Wat Breton Lay, where I stopped. The meeting was held there, but that was not a big training session. Before I was sent to Prey Vang and then to Phnom Penh. I did not engage in any significant training sessions. People from the rural areas and also from the provinces were with me at the time, and we were traveling a long way and we had to sleep en route. But there were no 4 or 5 day training sessions. We spent for 5 or 6 days on the way before we moved on to different places. I failed to elaborate on this point, but now I'm telling everything. There were no meetings. We were walked tirelessly. We got scratches, we got injury on our legs and hands before we reached certain places.
Let me read a bit more, because I want to ask you some questions about this S-200 and to understand what you told DC camp. On the very next page, you were asked in which village S-200 was located. You said it was in Prey Vang province, but I do not know the names of the village, commune, or district. So Chia asked you what they taught at S-200, and you answered, they taught us to work hard, to purify our minds, and remove all greed and selfishness. They educated us to join the party. They used the term our party. You said, you were asked how many people went with you from this village, and you said many people did. A lot of soldiers came and gathered together. You said a lot of people went with me from this village, but I did not recognize them because they had come from all the districts in Sferang province. Several people came from Tras commune, for example. So Chia asked you how many of them remain alive, and you said all of them have died. I'm the only one who's still alive. Those who are with me have all died. So Chia asked, did you study at S-200 school for 2 months? And you said, no. We studied there for around 1 month. And then we went to Wat Prayatonle Pagoda near Prey Vang district. So at this S-200 school, if you remember this, what kind of people were undergoing the training? Were there other monks that you recognize? Were there men, women? Can you explain?
Regarding S-200 school, we at the time did not know where we were from. We were organized into groups, and we were not allowed to move freely. We received a training session, but we were not given with materials or stationery. We did not stay long at different places. There were no significant training sessions, as I said. We went to Svai Ramit Pagoda, where there were no monks. They had been all defrocked. We were put in that location or pagoda to spend a night or a few nights before we were further sent to Phnom Penh. As I said, there were no monks there. What I really saw at the time is that there were no more monks anymore. We were informed not to move arbitrarily. We were to be there.
Okay, thank you. Let me make my question a little bit clearer. It's my fault. at S200, did you recognize any defrocked monks, people that had used to be formerly monks that you knew or had recognized from other dealings? Or were you the only former monk there as far as you knew?
I was a former monk. There was only me who used to be monk. People from different districts, but I myself did not know their names. A few of them were called into that pagoda. I was a really newcomer. They came from this and there, and I was alone from my location.
Okay, thanks. Now I want to move on and try to do this pretty quickly to what happened to you after Bore Kela. Can you tell us why you left Bore Kela? What happened?
I was at Bore Kela for a few months, and I was promptly removed from Bore Kela. I was at the time removing this, cleaning the sugarcane. I was told to go to a cooperative to plough the field and to take care of the water buffaloes, and I was warned not to break the plough, otherwise I would be accused of an enemy. I was warned not to break the plough and also to take care of some items. I was put in a cooperative and then was further sent to other locations.
Just to move things along, if there's not an objection, I would ask you, at one point were you taken to Trapang Kralong in Kampong Spu province?
I was removed at that location. I was tasked with taking care of cattle. One day the whistle was blown and my name was called out, and I was told to stand at one specific location. I did not recognize some of my friends. Then there was a vehicle coming to transport me to Trapang Kralong, where I was told to build a new railroad. That railroad construction site was to the north of National Road number 4.
Do you recall why, or do you know why you were taken there?
The interpreter did not hear the first part of the testimony. The East zone leaders, I learned that the East were now traitors. So those who were from the East were considered enemies. Those who were from the East, Svai Rieng, Prey Vang, were called to be tempered. To be tempered means to make us became thin and became weak.
Did they say anything about you in relation to Vietnamese? Was there any saying that they, or name that they called you?
បាទ
They said they made mention about Vietnamese. Those who were from the east had Vietnamese hat and Khmer body. I was referred to as a man with a Vietnamese hat and Khmer body. I was removed to be refashioned and to carry dirt in order to build a dam. We were referred to as those who were with a Vietnamese hat and Khmer bodies, Mr. President. We were not referred to as a Vietnamese person, but Yuan.
I believe you've mentioned, I want to go back to doing work at Stung Cooperative outside Phnom Penh after leaving Bore Kela. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I was at Stung Cooperative. I was tasked with taking care of big water buffaloes, and I was given with a plough to plough the field. I was whispered that if I happens to break the plough head, I would be accused of an enemy. So I had to take care of the items, and I had to be very careful. Owing to my carefulness, I had transferred to another location to build a big road.
When you were at Stung Cooperative, were you aware of any disappearances or executions?
President, please hold on, Mr. Winners.
Yes, Mr. President, good morning. I object to this question. Whatever happened at the site that the witness is asked questions about is outside the scope of this trial. Let me be very precise in this respect. Let me refer you specifically to both your severance decision and your sequencing decision, E301 and E315. This particular witness does not belong to one of the identified targeted groups. He's not a Cham, he's not a Vietnamese, and he wasn't a former Lon Nol Republic official or soldier. Whatever happened is not part of any of the three or four rather security centers that is part of this second trial as well. The remaining category could be the East Zone purges, him being someone from the East Zone. However, in E301/9/1.1, in a footnote 9, relating to paragraph 2, this is about the various footnotes that is part of the closing order that are part of this trial. Specifically, footnote 9 says the following: in addition to those sections included within the scope of case 002/02, the Chamber notes that further facts relating to the East Zone purges are set out in the sections of the closing order regarding the Stung Tok execution site and movement of population phase. Upon reasoned application, the Chamber may expand the scope of case 002/02 to include additional facts relating to internal purges in the North and East Zones, subject to the rights of the accused to have adequate time and facilities for the preparation of a defense, and the right of all parties to be provided with timely notice. Having said that, this particular witness and whatever happened to him after he left Boracay does in no manner whatsoever fit within the scope of the second trial. So any questions relating to whatever happened at this particular site in Kampong Spoo should be prohibited.
Your Honor, our position is, I haven't had a chance to study that at the moment, but it is that the scope decision for case 2/2, as counsel acknowledges, includes the purge of the East Zone. This was a person who was working at K5 at S71, part of the S71 unit, who we think the evidence shows was targeted, and his colleagues were, because they were from the East Zone. So it's within the scope of case 2/2 because it's part of the purge of the East Zone. The fact that the third forced transfer is excluded, well, this is not part of the evidence of the third forced transfer. And the fact that Your Honor said you could expand to include some evidence from the third forced transfer, again, this is not part of the third forced transfer, but it is part of purge of the East Zone cadre.
Very, very briefly responding, if I may, Mr. President. If you would allow these questions, it would be a direct violation of your own order. If you do allow the expansion, then at least there should be a reasoned request, and we should have time and facilities to adequately prepare ourselves.
President, the questions should not be put beyond the scope of the case, the sovereign case. And I think you run out of time now.
I'm out of time because I thought we had 2 sessions and we started at 9:30. Your Honors, we certainly agree we can't ask questions outside the scope. Our position is that the purge of the...
We added 10 minutes for you already, the first session, and 10 minutes was already added, so you have no more time now. However, you are allowed to put a relevant question within the scope of the sovereign case 002/02 decided by the Chamber.
Your Honors, I apologize if it's my misunderstanding, but my understanding was the witness was scheduled for a day, which would give each side 2 sessions, and we started at 9:30. We've used less than 1 session so far, or about 1 session.
It took the chamber for the initial proceeding 15 minutes, and that a typical session every day, and then we compensated you 10 minutes during the break time, and the combined time for the 2 parties on your side is about 15 minutes, and we would give you 5 extra minutes for the morning session.
So my understanding is this offense also will have 1 session. Is that correct? I'll proceed in 5 minutes if that's the situation.
2 court sessions. You started at 9:15, and now you are almost completed the second session for the morning, and probably we can only give you 5 or 10 more minutes at the most for this second session on your side.
I apologize. I thought the session ended at 11:30, so I would have at least a half hour. So I'll proceed with 5 minutes, if that's the situation.
Yes, that is correct. We will adjourn at 11:30 rather, and we give you 10 more minutes, so it's around 11:40 That is for the two parties on your side.
I understand. Apologies. Okay, that's very clear. Thank you. So, Mr. Witness, sorry. We do have an objection from the defense. Our position is that it was within the scope. But at this location in Stung Cooperative, first, this is important for me to ask you this first. Were other people from the East Zone with you? Was your group made up of people from all different provinces? Can you explain?
When we came together from each district or province, there were 2 or 3 people, and I did not know them. As for my side, I was alone. But then there were those from other districts, Svai Tiep and Svai Rumdut, and we walked several days before we reached Phnom Penh. So I hope it's clear.
Okay.
We were all new to each other, but then we were allowed to walk together, and there was no transportation at all.
Okay, given your answer, I'm going to skip over Stung Cooperative. I want to ask you if you ever were sent to the Kampong Som area.
Are you still going to proceed, co-prosecutor? I only heard Kampong Saum. And whether Kampong Saum is also part of the Tribunal case for 002/02, please be careful that you should not ask a question outside the scope of the servant's order for this proceeding.
Yes. So the question first is whether you were sent to the Kampong Som area.
I was sent to Trapang Krolang and then to an area in Kampong Saum called Stung Hau. So let me repeat. I left Trapang Krolang to Stung Hau, and over there we were asked to build the road and the sewage system at Stung Hau.
The group that you were working with at Stung Hau, were they all people from the East Zone, or what was the makeup of the group?
All of the workers there came from the East Zone. We were reassigned to go there to engage in hard labor. There were so many, and I could not recall their names. And they all came from Svay Rieng, Prey Veng, and Kampong Chan.
What happened to you and your East Zone colleagues there at Stung Hau?
Please repeat your question.
Can you tell us what happened to you and your other East Zone workers, colleagues, who were people you were working with at Stung Hau? Did anything occur to you?
All of my a group 50 people were not given sufficient food to eat, so we became overworked and exhausted. As a result, some of us became sick, and some were so hungry they went to look for food or fruit in the forest. Then we were accused of not working, but then we joined our hands to arrest this Hun who was in charge of the area. Then we sent the person to the military barrack, and we told them what happens, that we were not given sufficient rice to eat. Then soldiers walked Hun to their barrack, and next day they came to take us to go to have a meeting to resolve the matter. And when we arrived, we saw Hun there. All of us, that is the 50 of us, were allowed to sit on chairs under a house, and we were told to attend a meeting to resolve this matter because we arrested our chief, that is the person who was in charge of the kitchen in Steng Hau. And our 50 names were called, so we went there during noon time, and we were wearing our black uniforms with a blue scarf or kroma. When we arrived, a meeting was convened, and then for some reason the situation became chaotic, and then that we should not flee, we were told. And they decided that Hun was correct and that we were wrong, so they started to tie us all.
A couple questions to follow up on that. First, you mentioned going to the military. Just so we're absolutely clear, was this Khmer Rouge military that you brought Hun to?
I object to this question. I thought the ruling of the Chamber was clear, Mr. President. This is far outside the scope of the second trial, so I repeat my earlier objection. And in addition, I would like to repeat my observation with the previous witness. We are now in the segment of the role of the accused. I heard some very minor, very irrelevant questions in the beginning about Nguyen Chi or Kyu Sampan. I have no idea why this witness is testifying as to the role of the accused. Again, one objection, one repeated observation as to relevance.
Your Honors know that from the beginning of this trial, we've been here for 2 years, the ruling was that when a witness is called, whatever evidence although they may be testifying in one session or segment of the trial, all relevant evidence is admitted. Our position is, and I think the Court has previously consistently supported it, the purge of the East Zone is part within the scope of Case 2. This witness is now talking about the arrest of himself and 50 other persons, all from East Zone provinces, Prey Vang, Svay Rieng. And, well, it'll become apparent what he's going to talk about, but clearly the purging, the targeting, and the killing of East Zone people. So we think that's within the scope. And that has, our understanding, has consistently been the ruling of the Court.
Counsel, could you please indicate to which our ruling that you relied upon? And as for the co-prosecutor, please also indicate the relevant section of the ruling that you relied upon in terms of those from the East Zone.
Certainly, Mr. President, answering your question, I was referring to the annex to your decision.
Councillor Copper, please hold on. I'd like the co-prosecutor first to mention as to which parts of our ruling that you relied upon that this part falls within the scope of the current proceeding.
Your Honors, I don't have the scope decision in my hands, but clearly one of the segments, part of the scope decision is the purging of cadre, specifically the purging of East Zone. And this clearly, in our view, falls within that. These were 50 East Zone persons with blue scarves targeted for execution during the DK period.
That is clearly not your decision, Mr. President. I was referring to the annex attached to your decision E301/9/1.1, English ERN 00981687. Paragraph 2 talks about factual findings of the joint criminal enterprise. Subsection 3 speaks about security centers and execution sites. And then it says, including internal purges, implementation limited to relevant underlying offenses. So the main rule is, as I understand it, East Zone cadres purges, yes, if it is if they are detained at S21 Krang Tachan, Krom Krol and Okanseng. Purges in general, East Zone only to a certain extent. There is a reference to a footnote, footnote 9. Footnote 9 refers to one very specific geographical location in the East Zone, the Stung Tok execution site, and the closing order paragraphs 283-300 to movement of population phase 3. Whatever the witness is now describing takes place in Kampong Spu and up north Kampong Som. That doesn't fall within the geographical location as mentioned in the footnote, and it doesn't refer to that subsection paragraph 3. That is, in that sense, your decision is very clear, and it just doesn't fall into this. There is no general allowing of anything that happened to the purging of East Zone cadres as to fit within the scope. That only applies to the targeted groups, being the Cham, the Vietnamese, and the Lon Nol officials.
Your Honor, on that same page that counsel cites, part of it is, the court mentions that part of the scope of the trial are the findings regarding joint criminal enterprise. And number 3, security centers and execution sites, including internal purges. Well, a joint criminal enterprise, of course, the requirement is to find a common plan, policy, common intent. The defense, if I understand the defense throughout this case, has been that there was no targeting of people from the East Zone simply because they were from the East Zone. The defense case, as I understand it, is that all were traitors. So the issue, clearly at issue in this case, is were people from the East Zone indiscriminately targeted? Was that part of the purge in the joint criminal enterprise? And also this is, I believe, in the closing order, paragraphs 199 to 203. So even if the crime site, if this execution that the witness is about to testify to is not part of the crime base, the charges for this particular crime, it's part of the joint criminal enterprise and the policy issues, and goes directly to the defense case, which I understand counsel has said doesn't deny killing many East Zoners in S21 and other places, but says they were entitled to kill them because they viewed them as traitors. So it's relevant to the policy to target all East Zoners. It's part of the joint criminal enterprise.
What I forgot to mention again, that is, of course, there is within your decision a possibility mentioned of expanding the scope. And it literally says, upon reasoned application, the Chamber may expand the scope of case 002/2 to include additional facts relating to internal purges in the North and East zones, subject, etc., to the rights of the accused. So the way you have formulated your decision is clearly a limited interpretation as to whatever happened to people from the East Zone. It is not as wide and expansive as the three other targeted groups. So again, I think your decision is crystal clear.
Again, counsel's talking about adding to the charges the actual locations that will be part of the crime base. We're talking now, in my last argument, about the policy and the intent of the joint criminal enterprise, and the targeting was a national policy. This is, I think, particularly probative because it occurs in an area where we don't have a lot of evidence, that is down in Kampong Sam, showing that it was a nationwide policy to target East Zoners, regardless of having any reason to or not, indiscriminately target East Zone personnel. So I submit it to Your Honors for a decision. The testimony, I think, would take about 15 minutes for the witness to describe what happened.
Anything else, Councillor Victor Copper? Allow you, give you the floor now.
By just saying it is part of the joint criminal enterprise, that is, of course, a legally completely untenable argument. Then whatever the prosecution deems fit falls within the scope, just saying it is part of the joint criminal enterprise. That is not how it works, Mr. President. It should be very clear to the defense what the charges are, what the accusations are. There is no mention whatsoever of anything that happened in Kampong Spoo or Kampong Som in relation to the East Zone people. So it's extremely clear.
Yeah, just one small addition to the argument. This witness was put on the witness list, I believe, before the start of 2-2, at least. So the defense has had the statement where this is described. Both the DC CAM statement at that time, I think, is all we had, but later the other statements. So they've had notice of the witness's evidence. And again, I think a key issue the defense is contesting is the national policy and the intent to indiscriminately target East Zoners. We say this is clearly relevant to those issues.
Anything else that is from the two sides? I would give the floor to the two sides to raise the matters relevant to this issue. I'd like to hand the floor to Judge Laverne to issue an oral ruling on this matter.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Chamber notes that the crime site that is referenced to in this part of the testimony is not within the scope of case 002/2. So there is no need to interrogate in detail the witness on this statement. However, the Chamber also recalls that it has allowed witnesses to be examined to find out the details of national policies, and particularly policies targeting a certain group, and the particular group who could have been internal enemies, and specifically of the East Zone. So, Mr. Prosecutor, if you want to ask another one or two questions, it's fine, but please don't go into the nitty-gritty details.
Sir, then a couple quick questions. First, you mentioned you all had blue scarves. Where did they come from?
Huon was the one who gave us each a blue scarf. So when we were told to go there, we were told to wear our black uniform with a blue scarf. And at the meeting location, we were surrounded by soldiers. And after that, they used the blue scarf to tie all of us. And we protested that how could we be wrong, because we were innocent, and I was 20-something at the time, and that I never made any mistake. And the issue was about the arrest of Huon, because he did not give us enough rice to eat, so that he could change his mind and gave us more rice to eat. But everything turned, and we were in the wrong, while Huon was in the right.
Mr. Witness, I hope this will be my last question for you, because I'm running out of time. Can you try to explain as clearly as possible, after you and the other 50 in your group, or 49 in your group, were tied up with your blue scarves, what happened to you? Can you explain that to the judges, please?
I can briefly describe the event. After I was arrested, they gave us only one or two pieces of potato for each meal, and then they gave us a bit of water to drink. And we were in that situation for 13 days and nights. They tortured us, they beat us up. And on the night of the 7th January, and I recall that night clearly, they said that the situation could not be resolved, and that the party in Phnom Penh would resolve the issue. But then they required to tie another layer on our wrist and our legs. Then they were afraid that when they put us on the train, we would jump off the train wagon. But that night, at around midnight, 10 of us was taken out as per batch. So 10, and then another group of 10. We were told that they would be put on a train. So they took a group of 10 away, and a while later they came for another group. And I was amongst the people in the last group. They walked us about 400 to 500 meters away from that location and returned us back. And by 7 o'clock in the morning, we found out that those who were taken away were killed at the mountain. They also killed us. I was hit by a few claps on my head, but somehow I survived. And then amongst the dead, I saw a Khan who also survived. So we tried to erect ourselves, although we were tied. And then he untied me, and I untied him. Then we used the mat to put it on our wound, and I had to drink my own urine in order to survive. Then we went to look for our clothes at our work site, but everybody was not there. They all fled, and they left behind rice, cooking pots, etc. So I cooked rice there, and I stayed for over 1 month in a cave before I returned to my native village.
I believe the civil parties have some questions here.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. As my colleague Saron will have some questions to put to the witness.
Yes, Council Hong Kam Soon, you have the floor. Hong Kam Soon, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. And good morning, everyone. Allow me to continue from where the co-prosecutor left off. Mr. Witness, you said that you do not know about documentation center that is this camp in 2005. And my question to you is that, was there a group of people who came to ask you questions at your house in Bang village? Answer. Yes, in 2005 they came, and it was raining while I was coming back from the rice field. They did not invite me to the court. They asked me a question there, and they took my photograph as well. But I do not recall their names. There were 2 of them, and they were in a small vehicle. Question. Before your appearance today, have you read the document of that interview? Answer, yes, I have. That is including the biography that I have before me. Question, you were asked by the co-prosecutor in relation to your work at the Borai Kila, and you said that you did not know or saw any of the leader. Now I'd like to refresh your memory. Did you speak about your experience of seeing Khieu Samphan, Pol Pot, or Noon Chea during that interview? Answer. When I was interviewed, I was not asked about whether I saw any of them, and that is the truth. I did not see any of them. I did not see Khmer Krahom, Pol Pot, or Ieng Sari. I only heard of their names. Question. It's been 11 years since then, so your memory in relation to that interview with the group? Do you recall the content of that interview, or do you tend to forget it? Answer. I forget most of it. I only remember a little, and my memory does not serve me well since I was struck in my head. And sometimes maybe I said something, but later on I do not recall it. And when you said, I just recall that I was interviewed in 2005 during a rainy day. Question, Mr. President, I'd like to refresh the witness memory by referencing to document E305/13.23.377, and another one is E3/9086 and at Khmer EAN 00977451, and the EN in English is 00983507, and I do not have the French EAN. I'd like to refresh the witness memory in relation to that statement, and the EN that I refer to is on page 13 in the Khmer language. He was asked a question as, do you know any of those people? And the witness said they came from Karachi, Ratanakiri, Mudolkiri, and all provinces as long as they were at the district cadres. And the next question, what about the leaders in Phnom Penh who attended the meeting? And his response is Khieu Samphan and Pol Pot. Sometimes Khieu Samphan came, at different times Pol Pot came. And Mr. Witness, does that refresh your memory? And at the time I asked them, and they said that I asked who came to teach, and I was told that that day it was Khieu Samphan who came to teach. And later on when I asked again, they said that it was Pol Pot. But I myself never saw any of them. I refer to while I was a cook at Borei Keila. Question, when you asked these questions, were you told that Nuon Chea attended that meeting? And no, Nuon Chea was not mentioned. They mentioned frequently about the Khieu Samphan. Pol Pot rarely came. But Khieu Samphan usually came for each training session, and Nuon Chea did not come. But I was serving the guests, and when I asked these questions, I was told those answers. Question, did you ever see Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan at the Borei Keila, even from afar? Answer, no, I did not. I did not see any of them in person. I only heard of their voice and their names. Counsel, I'd like to refer to your question and answer at the same number on the same page that is ending with 51 in Khmer and 37 in English. You will ask a question. What Khieu Samphan looked like, and you said that he had white complexion, he was tall, and his hair was shining. And then you were asked about Nuon Chea. You said Nuon Chea had a fair complexion, a bit bold, and he was similar to Pol Pot. Then you were asked about whether you knew about Nuon Chea's position, and you said Nuon Chea was the chief and Khieu Samphan was the president of the state presidium. Mr. Witness, are these your responses, or do you not recall them? And allow me to respond. As for the name of Khieu Samphan and his physical description, that's what I was told, and I only repeated what I was told. But as I said, I was told that Khieu Samphan used to come to give instructions at those training sessions. They refer to those to him as a cadre, an instructor. But I did not see him clearly in person. Thank you, Mr. Witness and Mr. President. I conclude my assessment. President, thank you. It is also a convenient time for a short break. And before the break, I'd like to inform the parties that After we hear the testimony of this witness, we will hear a civil party to TCCP 235. This morning, civil party Sorceran had problem with his health, but the latest update is that he left his hotel and he cannot be contacted by his phone number, and Visu staff is trying to contact him, and we would be provided with any further information. So it seems that he cannot come to testify tomorrow. So this information is for the parties in relation to the hearing of civil party to TCCP 235 after the conclusion of this witness testimony. The Chamber will take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon to continue our proceedings. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses during the break time and invite him back into the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. Security personnel, you are instructed to take Kyu Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him return to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court stands in recess.